think that the most interesting part of storytelling art is the plethora of antagonist archetypes that you can find. You have the evil for the sake of being evil, the pseudo-rational, malevolent type that feels that his motives are enough to warrant his actions, and so many more. A lot of times we judge these villains based upon a series of standards. Do they make the protagonist feel like they actually have present danger? Is the antagonist design menacing and fierce? These questions guide our discussions of villains. What is never consistent is the standard by which we judge. I've pointed this out before, but the reason why it's so hard to be objective with art is because all of our standards of art, whether we know it or not, whether we admit it or not, are entirely different. This remains true with villains that we see in literary and commercial fiction, as well as anime. Specifically, Dragon Ball's villains have seen such a wide range of these archetypes, and it makes finding an objective standard very difficult. That said, what actually makes a Dragon Ball villain great? Whenever we discuss Dragon Ball's villains, two of them usually come to mind: Frieza and Goku Black. As I scope the black hole that is Twitter, these two villains always come into the discussion of Dragon Ball's best villain. However, I would like to make a third entry, specifically from Dragon Ball GT, to this discussion: Baby. We'll be using these three villains, comparing and contrasting them, and seeing what further evaluations we can make about the villains of Dragon Ball, and seeing if we can make an answer of which villain is the best. First and foremost, Frieza is the reason that the entire Dragon Ball franchise is able to even kick off. Frieza destroyed Planet Vegeta, and whether you want to bring Beerus into that discussion, we can bring him up a bit later. And because of Frieza committing such an atrocity, we are welcomed into the world of Dragon Ball. Cute little kid Goku grows stronger and stronger, making all kinds of friends and stopping foes that he meets along the way. All the while, we are unaware of the foreboding, ominous presence that is Frieza. It is after a long 16 volumes later that the story of these intergalactic warriors begins. And it's around volume 21 that we first get introduced to the being that started it all. We wait for such a long time for him to really do anything in the Namek arc, and the build-up is well deserved for the amount of pain and suffering that he brought upon Goku and the others. However, I can almost guarantee that when you think about Frieza or Namek in general, one of the first thoughts that comes to your mind is Goku's first Super Saiyan transformation. That brings us to an important part of our talk. Do we love Frieza for being Frieza, or for the fact that he served as a catalyst for Goku transforming for the first time, and effectively changing the entire scope of the franchise? This brings me to my first category of a Dragon Ball villain that I want to discuss: the catalyst. Frieza is a cool villain on his own, but we love him for simply how much was caused by him. Also, don't take any of this as me disrespectfully generalizing the whole fandom. This is just the easiest way for me to explain it. Anyhow, Frieza brought the second death of Goku's best friend, allowed for another chance to show Piccolo's incredible character development, and gave us one of the most explosive transformations in the entire series. In this instance, Frieza was the catalyst for something. Catalyst meaning a person or thing that precipitates an event. Chances are that Goku has had this incredible latent power for the vast majority of the Namek arc, but Frieza is the one that makes him unleash it, thus serving as our catalyst. This is where we really learn the power of rage, a theme that would continue as far on as Dragon Ball Super. Speaking of, Frieza takes himself from being a catalyst to another category in Resurrection F, that being what I would call the mechanism. I love Resurrection F quite a bit, but Frieza's main purpose in the film was to be a mechanism by which to demonstrate three key things. 1. How far Goku and Vegeta have come since the Namek arc. 2. The power of Super Saiyan Blue. And 3. The hidden powers of the deities of the Dragon Ball multiverse. The mechanism serves an important role, because they definitely have their own identity, but they are primarily around to show something concerning the protagonist. Frieza, again, undergoes an entirely different transformation, literally and figuratively, and he goes from being the mechanism to the supplementary suspense. You could argue the anti-hero, but Frieza is still very much a villain. He's simply siding with the heroes to get what he wants. The reason why I call him the supplementary suspense is that the heroes are already worried about the outcome of the tournament, and bringing Frieza along for the ride makes him a supplement to this anxiousness. There were several times, such as the ending of episode 110, where the writers know to use Frieza for moments in which we believe that he would betray the heroes. Even in episode 95, he offers to fight alongside Universe 9. Moments like these make it to where we are definitely wondering the outcome, but mainly wondering what Frieza is going to do, especially as we learn of his plot to control the gods, which I would not assume is actually over yet. With all of this factored in, Frieza actually serves as three of the categories. Again, the catalyst, the mechanism, and the supplementary suspense. And I'm not counting his GT appearance because he literally accomplished nothing but making a joke of himself. So Frieza has a pretty hefty amount of layers to his writing, and I'm excited to see what he undergoes in the future. Speaking of the future, let's take the discussion to the villain of the future Trunks arc, Goku Black, or should I say, Zamasu. Zamasu is basically Thanos. thinking that his destruction of a lot of mortals and gods alike is enough to balance the universe, or in Zamasu's case, create a utopia for a brand new society to emerge. Zamasu basically believes that mortals are evil, and care for no one but themselves, continuing to relish in war and mutiny. To pretty much taunt the mortals, the Zamasu of the main timeline switches bodies with Goku, while the future Zamasu gains immortality. There are actually quite a few layers to discuss with this. First, Zamasu falls under a different category, the pseudo-hero. What I would define this as is a villain who tries to give himself off as the hero of the story due to his oftentimes complex motivation that we can somewhat understand, but still falls short due to the general malevolence within his or her character. This definitely describes Zamasu, but Goku Black is actually a slightly different entity. Well, I say slightly, but there are actually quite a few differences here. Future Zamasu focuses on immortality, meaning that he cares about the godly presence that he desires to have. He desires an unbreakable body, as unbreakable as his ideals, kind of like a diamond. No. Well, the JoJo video will come later. Anyways, Goku Black on the other hand wants brute strength, which actually brings something interesting to him. These two villains are almost yin and yang, one pursuing the power of a god while the other pursues the presence or presentation that a god holds. Goku Black desires to fight against the heroes more and more because it makes him stronger, which is why he tends to hold back quite a bit so he doesn't kill them. However, the two beings are definitely one and the same. They share the same type of motivation. But there are these factors that make them unique. On top of this, there's a lot of irony to these characters. For instance, the dramatic irony of Gowasu having so much trust and faith in Zamasu to be his apprentice, when in all reality, Zamasu is planning to kill him and kick off the Zero Mortals plan. The installation of this irony is that we are all wondering if Zamasu is our villain, that he has a strong disdain for the mortal kind. The exploitation is that it makes us more and more curious as to who Goku Black is, which I can definitely say due to all the theory videos at the time. Finally, the resolution is when Goku, Whis, and Beerus witness Zamasu killing Gowasu. On top of this, there are definite contradictions in what Zamasu says, thinks, and does. And it adds to his character in a great way, I think. Using a mortal's body despite hating mortals is great because it lets us know that Zamasu can do questionable things that, in his mind, are intelligent and proper. And my absolute favorite thing, the fact that he cuts the barbarian mortal in half and then gets cut in half by Trunks, which is absolutely filled with symbolism that he has lowered himself to what he hates most, a crazy, rampaging demon with the only fate being to get cut in half. Zamasu may not have as many categories of villainy as Frieza, but he goes through his transformations in his time. Even when he goes Super Saiyan Rose, things change about him, including the way that he speaks. Plus, Zamasu, as well as Baby, had one arc, whereas Frieza has had a major part in at least 3 or 4. For Zamasu's time on screen, he definitely was a stellar villain as well, and I do believe he was extremely well written. Finally, we have one more villain to discuss. Baby. Baby is the Tuffle sent to destroy the Saiyans. He is in the category that I would define as the Avenger. This is different from the pseudo-hero because, unlike the pseudo-hero, the Avenger is actually doing something good for somebody. The Tuffles were mercilessly killed and slaughtered by the Saiyans, and Baby doing what he did actually serves them right in some way. Even in him directly controlling and enslaving some of the Saiyans, notably Vegeta, it's full of symbolism. For example, Vegeta is king of this new civilization with Baby as his mental puppeteer. This is extremely illusory to how King Vegeta was, by namesake, the king of the Saiyans and their civilization, sort of controlled by Frieza. On top of that, the fight between Goku and Baby is symbolic on 3 different levels, and I only thought of this because of a conversation I had with BaderKQ on Twitter. The first level is that it again brings us another fight between Goku and Vegeta, the 2 strongest Saiyans. 2, it brings the Tuffle against another Saiyan, quote-unquote, ape, specifically via the Super Saiyan 4 form, and moreover, created Baby Vegeta and even the Golden Ozaru. 3, it marks Goku and Vegeta's consciousness being invaded at some point throughout the arc. Vegeta's mind being enslaved by Baby while Goku's is almost compromised by the power of the Golden Ozaru. It is a very meaningful fight, perhaps the most symbolic and meaningful fight in the entirety of Dragon Ball lore. Baby's Avenger role helps him so much because it makes us empathize with him. It makes us understand why he's doing what he's doing, without the controversial contradictions of a pseudo-hero. The fight all around is absolutely amazing, and this is where Baby shines in the second half of this arc. He also shines in the Parasite-esque feel that brings a certain horror to his character. Well, that brings us to the final part of the video. Which of these villains is the best? Which one definitely deserves the title of objectively best villain? Drumroll please. It's impossible to define it. Before you click off the video, let me explain. It's what I was saying at the very beginning of the video. What standard do you judge your villains off of? You could argue that Frieza is the best because of all of the categories he racks up in his time in Dragon Ball. You could argue that Goku Black or Zamasu is the best because of his motivations or the contradictions in his character that make him deeper and more unstable. And you could argue that Baby is the best villain because of the symbolism that goes along with his fight. Do you like the Catalyst, Mechanism, Supplementary Suspense, Pseudo-hero, or the Avenger? Or another category that I did not even name? These are the questions that you personally have to answer. You could sum up the Pilaf gang as a mechanism. You could sum up Cell as the catalyst for Gohan, while also making him a mechanism to show off how far Gohan has come. And what about Beerus? Could he be the category of the mechanism for Super Saiyan God while also being an antagonist rather than a purely evil character? My point is that when you try to rank villains by what they do or say, it's difficult because of all the different categories there are by which to judge them. I even like Broly because I feel that there are a lot of implicit details to him, and I'll link that video up top in the card, but that would bring up the implicit category of villains. Really, all of Dragon Ball's villains and antagonists are incredible, and I would love to do a series where I break down every antagonist in the franchise, as they are easily the most interesting part of Dragon Ball to me. But I can't break them all down here in this video with all their archetypes and categories, and all this freaking editing. So really, you have so many options between the original manga, GT, Super, Hero, Xenoverse, Legends, etc. Take your pick and find which villain category works for you. When you do, let me know in the comments what your favorite type of villain is, even if it's not one of the categories that I've named for this video. Also, let me know your answer on if you had to choose your favorite villain between these three, your favorite villain in Dragon Ball altogether, and your favorite villain in all of fiction. Afterwards, be sure to like the video if you enjoyed, share the video out with people that you know and people that you don't know, but with whom you just want to harass with my videos, in which case thank you, and please subscribe to the channel if you are new. The road to 1,000 subscribers is almost over, so please feel free to help out in that journey. I love you all so much. I hope you all have an amazing day. Don't let anyone change who you are. And God bless.
What kind of place is this?